Hello, it's Dan with Philosophical Fishing, the channel completely dedicated to benzodiazepine withdrawal, damage, and recovery. I wanted to come on and make a video today talking to you about benzo belly, which for me has been my most persistent and troubling symptom ever since I came off of benzos in September of 2015. And if you've struggled with benzo belly or you are struggling with benzo belly, you know how much it can completely suck. It is so hard to deal with. And it affects everybody a little bit differently, but basically, benzo belly presents itself as a distended hard belly. Usually there's a lot of gastroparesis, which is the intestines and the stomach empty slower, and the intestines just slow down the digestion of food, and it creates a lot of problems, and it's due to vagus nerve damage. That is a direct result of benzodiazepine use. And a lot of what happens with the nervous system happens in the gut, and as doctors and scientists are finding out more and more and more, so much of our gut health affects the overall health of our entire body. So it's no surprise that if you were on benzos for a long time and have recently come off benzos or you're tapering, there's going to be some kind of nervous system damage. It just goes hand in hand with taking benzodiazepines. And with that, the nervous system also controls the digestion system. So a lot of us have problems with digestion and different issues that go along with that. When I first came off of benzos, I got hit with this feeling that I was full. Right after eating, I was so full and I felt like my belly was about to explode. Like I just ate 2 full lasagnas and downed a whole bunch of milkshakes on top of it. And it was crazy. It was the weirdest feeling. And I thought that, okay, something is definitely wrong because this is just a simple meal that I ate and my belly looked like I was 8 months pregnant. I mean, it was kind of just sticking out like I had just swallowed a beach ball, and I'm kind of a thinner guy anyway, so to have this huge big old belly was ridiculous on me, and it affected me the way that I felt about myself and the way that I looked because I was very self-conscious of it. But initially I didn't know what was going on because I had just come off of benzos. I was in this treatment center and I was going down to the cafeteria every once in a while to try to eat a meal when I could get some food down. And my belly was just so huge after eating, and I had no idea what was going on. All I knew was that I was so sick, and I was trying to get better, and something was going on in my digestive system that was not right. And so as time went on, when I got out of my treatment center and I got back into the real world, into normal life, and tried to start recovering from all the damage that I had done to myself through benzodiazepines and drug use and alcohol abuse, I started to realize that this stomach issue was not going away, and it was one of my most troubling symptoms. At 7.5 years off of benzos, it is still the most prevalent symptom that I have, whereas probably 99% of my other symptoms have fallen by the wayside to a greater or lesser degree. Benzo belly still affects me every single day on a daily basis. And whether it's more of just an annoyance every day, that's a constant reminder of the damage I did to my body, or it actually really affects me to the point where I just need to sit down or lay down and rest myself because my benzo belly is so uncomfortable. It's always with me. It's always with me. There was a doctor at the treatment center that I went to who was a very, very smart guy, and he was one of the only people in the medical profession that I've ever spoken to that actually knew a whole lot about benzodiazepine damage. And what he told me was my vagus nerve was damaged. There's 2 nerves that go down to the stomach on either side, and the vagus nerve. And he said those nerves were damaged, and because of that, he said that benzo belly was going to be the last symptom to ever go away. And so far, 7.5 years later, after coming off of benzos, he's absolutely right because it has not gone away. It's gotten a whole lot better. I just want to stress that. So if you're dealing with benzo belly, just know that it's at least going to get a whole lot better and a whole lot easier to cope with over time. You're not going to be stuck with the horrible symptoms, the worst of the worst, forever. It eventually will start letting up. But I would say my whole first year off of benzos, it was really, really difficult. So I would wake up in the morning with benzo belly to some extent. It wouldn't be horrible, but then I would go and eat breakfast and it would swell up right away. My belly would get really big and I would feel like I was full of gas. I remember feeling like I had slimy sausages or snakes like crawling around inside my abdomen. That's the best way I can describe it. And I literally remember writing that in my journal, that I felt like I had like some weird, hard, slimy snakes crawling around inside of me. And it was a crazy, uncomfortable feeling. And it was every time I ate. I mean, every single time that I ate food, I had this. And my belly would swell up and it would get really, really hard and distended. And I also felt very, very self-conscious about it, again, because I'm on the thinner side and I try to stay fit. I've always exercised on a regular basis. I found myself having to buy these big baggy shirts to try to cover myself. And I was already uncomfortable from the benzo belly. And now I had this cosmetic issue also to deal with, on top of the fact that my skin and hair and everything else looked pretty bad too. I had this huge belly that I was walking around with, and it wasn't fat, and it wasn't because I had overeaten. It was just simply because I had nervous system damage, and it was making my stomach and belly do these crazy, crazy things. Also, when I would eat, I would also get a lot of back pain in the small of my back when my benzo belly was really, really bad and distended. So on top of having this distended belly, my lower back was in a lot of pain, and it hurt to stand up, it hurt to move, it hurt to bend over, and it was uncomfortable on top of being uncomfortable, on top of the anxiety that I was feeling too. So I was a complete physical wreck when I came off of benzos, and that's not even talking about all the other symptoms that I had on top of benzo belly and on top of everything else that I was dealing with. I was a complete nervous wreck, and I was a cluster of physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional symptoms. That's the thing that makes benzo withdrawal so different from every other drug, is it hits you from every single side simultaneously and to the extreme, where you're dealing with past trauma, you're dealing with troublesome, intrusive thoughts, you're dealing with physical pain in your legs, in your back, in your stomach, in your neck, in your muscles. You're dealing with emotional pain. You're dealing with all kinds of things that are so heavy. There's not many resources in the world to deal with it right now. And the greatest thing that I think that we have are people who have been through it and are giving back and saying, I've gone through it, I've been where you are, and I'm here to tell you that you can recover from this. You're not stuck. Me personally, I was in psychosis. I was in a psych ward. The doctor said I had a 50-50 shot of ever coming out of the psychosis that I was in. I was so damaged, laying in a psych ward hospital, sick as a dog, wondering if I was ever going to be okay again. Step by step, I put one foot in front of the other, and I just kept going. And the days turned into weeks, the weeks turned into months, and the months turned into years. Slowly, my symptoms began to fall away, and I started to get better and better and better, because I knew that I had to, and I wanted to, and I believed that I could. And that's going to play a huge, huge role in your recovery from benzodiazepines, is just to find that belief from time to time that you're going to be okay. Attach yourself to the positive stories that you hear people talking about, which I wish there were more out there. I wish there were more people who have gone through it and came back to say, it's possible, you can do this. But I think most people just get better from things and they go on, and that's human nature. But I believe that if I was able to do this, I do believe anybody can do it, because I was about as damaged as you could possibly be, losing my mind and losing my grasp on reality and having every single symptom that you could have in the book. And still, I came through it, and I'm actually a better person, stronger, more emotionally grounded, happier than I've ever been in my life, as the result of having actually gone through benzo withdrawal. When you're going through it, it is horrendous. It is one of the hardest things that a human being can go through. So just know that if you're going through it right now, you're an incredibly strong person, and you're amazing that you can even have the strength to go through benzo taper or benzo withdrawal, because it is incredibly, incredibly difficult. And only those of us who have gone through it or are going through it know what it's like. You could never accurately describe this to anybody and have them understand what it's truly like to go through benzo withdrawal. And quickly, some of the main things that I had to do was I had to abstain from sugar as much as possible, which here in the West and in the United States is very hard to do because so much of our foods are processed with sugar. There's sugar added to our drinks, to our foods, everything. So to try to cut down on sugar and have an almost sugar-free diet without the use of unhealthy sugar substitutes is very tough. I started to try to find healthy sugar substitutes to add to my foods. Another thing that affected it was caffeine. And early on, I could have almost absolutely no caffeine. Caffeine was just off the table, which for me is almost unconscionable because I love my coffee so much. But I found myself having to drink decaf coffee, and I had some tea every day probably, but tea is much lower in caffeine and doesn't seem to give me that hard jolt that coffee gives me. So I was able to drink tea, I was able to drink decaf coffee, I had to cut down on sugar. For some reason it seemed like tomatoes, acidic foods affected me a lot, as did onions, and I have no idea why. I was just chatting about that on this channel with somebody today, how onions seem to affect my benzo belly very negatively. And I just found that to be the case for me. Also, red meat seemed to affect it somewhat. From time to time, it felt like when I ate red meat, it would also affect me negatively. And you might be upset for a while that you can't have your coffee, or you can't have sugar or desserts or red meat or tomato-based foods. But just know that you're temporarily putting these things on hold, and it will come back and it will get better. I don't know that it will completely go away because, as I've said, I'm 7.5 years out and I'm still dealing with it. So the day that it does go away, I guarantee you I will be making a celebratory video and I'll be eating a damn cake because I'm going to be so happy about it. But so far, that has yet to happen. I still don't tolerate sugary foods very well at all. Caffeine, I do pretty well with now, and I can have a cup or two or three sometimes of coffee a day, and I seem to be good with that. But the good part about it is also that adhering to a low sugar diet and all these other nutritional changes that I've had to make have actually been a positive thing because it's made me look at my nutrition and where can I do better, what things do I need to cut out, and how can I live an overall healthier lifestyle. And that's one big lesson I've learned from benzodiazepines, is that I was forced to take a good hard look at the things that I was doing, content that I was consuming via news or online or social media, and cut out the negative things that I was looking at, adhering to a more nutritional diet, practicing exercise, regular meditation, and generally trying to be a better person, give back, be a more giving, kind, compassionate, generous person. And all these changes that I've made, they're all for the better. And it all came out of intense misery and pain. I want you to know that you're not stuck. You're not stuck forever, no matter how long you've been dealing with benzo damage. You can get through it. You will get through it. There's tools to deal with it. There's so many great things that you can actually learn from it and become a better person, rewire your brain, and learn how to live life all over again. It's kind of like being a baby learning to walk, and you get to relearn how to do all these things over again. And it's painful and it sucks to go through, but you will come out of it a better person and you will be changed for the better as a result of going through this process. I hope this video helped you guys. I love you. I wish you well on your healing journey.